All right, and so today we are going to be talking with Jeff Burns, who runs his own YouTube channel, Geeky Super YouTube channel, Super Geeked Up. He runs a lot of different shows through that. I think I first really met him in 2018 at the Empire Con, or the Empire State Con here in Albany, when he and Mike Spring were running part of some of the panels and doing their show at the con. So I'm going to bring Jeff in and see if we can catch up with him, since it's been a while since we talked.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's good. It has been a while. It's great to talk to you again.
Yeah, I mean, I promised I'd get in touch with you to do an interview. Then I got busy. You moved, and and then things happened, and I found the time.
Right. Well, now we're doing it, so it's great.
Right. So, again, since it's been a while since we talked, tell us a little bit about how you got into comics, then how you got into doing your shows.
Sure. I mean, I got into comics when I was a kid. I mean, I don't remember exactly the first time like I read a comic, but I remember I loved Spider-Man. He was always my favorite. He's still today my favorite comic book character. And I read so I got all the Spider-Man comics back in the day, like Amazing, Spectacular, Web of Spider-Man, all those that were out when I was growing up. Spider-Man and X-Men were kind of like my two big ones as a kid. As I got older, I kind of started to do some more DC stuff and Image and, Top Cow and all that stuff as well. In terms of actually doing my geeky shows, before I started doing these kind of live geeky comedy shows, I was doing filmmaking. I actually started doing that right out of college, even though that's not what I went to college for. But I was always I enjoyed writing stories. So I started, doing some short films after college and grad school, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And then I guess the most seen thing I've done is my Super Knocked Up action comedy web series. We did 2 seasons of that. We actually shot it right in Albany, and that's about a super villain who gets pregnant by her superhero nemesis. And then shenanigans ensue about them trying to raise a baby together. So that was great. And then my Super Geeked Up show kind of came out of that Super Knocked Up show, because it was me and my 2 lead actors doing that at first, doing Super Geeked Up and kind of just talking all different kind of geeky topics. And that show has run much longer than I ever expected, because we're approaching 300 episodes at this point. I think we're at like 276 or something. And it's very much more into like a geek improv comedy show now, which we still do online, and I get to do at Comic-Cons all across the country and even in Canada, which has been a lot of fun.
So, tell us a little bit about. Looks like looking at your schedule, you have shows pretty much that run every night of the week, or pretty much throughout the week. Give us a round of those shows.
Yeah, so as you put that up, I'm realizing, thank you, I got to update some of that stuff. That is, so the
problem solved.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine, because I mean, they can still see all that stuff, just not all of it's actually currently running at the moment. So I mean, I appreciate that. Most of the stuff on the website, it's current. I just the opening blurb I gotta change. So Super Geeked Up, which has always been kind of like the flagship show that like geeky chat and improv comedy. We do that Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. So we actually do that. We usually do a couple seasons every year. So actually, I'm not, depending on when you put this up, but next week is going to be our season finale, actually. But all the past episodes are up there. And then there's usually like a couple months between seasons. We used to do some other, so our DC Action Hour show, we do that every so often. That's a show where we look at all the Arrowverse shows, like over on the CW. So like Arrow, Flash, Batwoman, Supergirl, all that stuff. And we used to do that every week. And now we kind of do it more for like the big things, right? Like, so the big crossover, so the Crisis on Infinite Earths. We did a couple shows for that, and the finale of Arrow and all that stuff. And then we have some like Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing game shows we sometimes do as well. Again, those are every so often now. We used to do like sometimes 3 shows a week. And I've actually gotten back more into, so I'm doing a lot of writing now, and I'm going to be publishing on Amazon. So I'm writing like a lot of short stories and so like novellas, and also working on another screenplay. So because I'm also working on that and I'm very passionate about that, like I've kind of cut down to one main show a week, which is the Super Geeked Up show.
So what kind of topics do you kind of, do you cover on Super Geeked Up?
So anything, yeah. And I mean, anything geeky is kind of fair game for us. So, right. So it's a lot of science fiction stuff, fantasy, superheroes, video games, anything kind of geek pop culture stuff. Right. So, like Star Wars, Harry Potter, Star Trek, those are things that come up all the time on our show. I bring up the movie Willow all the time, just because I love that movie. Or, like The Matrix, whatever. I mean, anything you can think of, we're going to talk about at some point, particularly after doing so many shows that we've done. But a bit of a challenge for me now is trying to think of topics that we have not covered. But the format of the show is we do like kind of fun geek themed questions. We do a couple of those each show, like, what video game world would you want to live in? What's your weapon of choice in the zombie apocalypse? Stuff like that. And then we and our guests share our answers. We have a live chat on YouTube, and they're awesome. They participate all the time. They're super supportive. So we share their answers. And then we do a couple geek themed improv games. So if you ever watch the show, Whose Line Is It Anyway, which I'm a big fan of, you're going to see probably a lot of similar stuff to that, but we put like a geeky spin on it. Right. So we do a game, for example, called Superhero Sound Effects, where the audience will give us totally goofy, made up, like superhero names, right? Like, I don't know, like lactose intolerant lad or something like that. And then two of us will like do a scene solving some ridiculous crisis, like the world's out of ketchup or something. And then other people will make the sound effects in that scene, right? So that's super fun, and it's also really fun when we do that live at cons, because we'll have audience people come up to do the sound effects for us.
So is it a regular panel, or is it a rotating people that help out with the show?
Yeah. So when our online show, so I have a co-host now for the past couple seasons. His name's Francis Fernandez. He does his own stuff over at Sincere Sarcasm, but he's awesome. He's a good friend of mine. He co-hosts with me every week, but then each week we bring on 1 or 2 guests, and they are different every week. So we have different, so me and my co-hosts are the same, but we have different guests on every week, which is great because so every show is different. We do different topics and games every week too, right? So those geeky questions are different every week. The games we kind of rotate through. We probably have about, I don't know, like 10 to 12 different games. So every like 4 to 5 shows, you're going to get maybe we might start repeating those, but they're always different, of course, because it's improv. But we have a pretty good stable of different games we do. And we kind of, like this past season, we added 2 new games too. So we try to add new ones every season.
So now you mentioned, and I know that you have been doing this, you do your thing at comic conventions, and we're talking cons like Dragon Con and San Diego. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So
yep.
So kind of, would you mind talking a bit about the, I mean, you've kind of mentioned that you have, audience members come in and or come up and participate, but how long have you been doing that? Did that get started? And
yeah, so we were doing the show online before we started doing that cons, but I've been doing Super Geeked Up, and actually now a bunch of other panels at cons for probably at least 5 years now, I would say. and it's awesome. Like doing it. I mean, I love doing the show online, but being like at a con, like on stage, right, and have an actual audience there, and like, feeling their energy, seeing them laugh at what we're doing, actually getting them to come up on stage with us and participate, like that's just like a big thrill and really kind of a big high. And there's some improv games that work, I think, much better in person than they do online, right? So we get to kind of pull out some stuff that we don't get to do on the show so much, the online version. So that's great. And we have different guests depending on like where we're at, like Dragon Con or San Diego Comic Con. And it's been amazing to do that because those are two of the biggest cons in the entire world. The places like that. And I've got to do it a lot of cons, which has been very cool across North America. And of course, I've gotten to do it at like a lot of the smaller ones, which are just sometimes even more fun. Like Albany Comic Con, right? Like, which is one of the first ones I started at because my hometown, and Empire State, which you mentioned. So we've gotten to do it for smaller crowds. We've gotten to do it for like, I don't know, probably like close to 300 people at Dragon Con last year. It's been awesome.
Kind of a using that as a segue. What do you think about like the future of cons and how San Diego? I think San Diego's been canceled, which I think of probably the first time that that's happened, and chances are New York Con is going to be canceled. I highly doubt that that's going to be take place as we know it. So what's your perspective? What's your thoughts on that? And because you go to a lot of different cons, and you seem to be.
And like in the past couple of years, I haven't gone to quite as many. Like at the height, I don't know, man. Like I was going all over the place, like 7, 8 a year, and traveling all over, and that gets a little expensive. But I got to, fortunately, because obviously, right, events of the world, of course, are preventing this from happening. I did get to go to the San Diego Comic Fest, which happened just before all this stuff happened. So it was, which is a smaller one here in San Diego, but it's awesome. The people are great. I get to do some panels there. I actually was running the game department there this year. So it was nice to get like kind of one cool geeky event in right before everything kind of got shut down. One thing that's nice is I have still been able to participate, like in Wondercon, which the Comic-Con people run in Anaheim. They did a Wondercon at home. So I still got to do Super Geeked Up in an RPG panel, like where we did it like kind of through Zoom and other things. And they put it online. Comic-Con is also going to do a Comic-Con at home thing. And I'm not allowed to say anything else about that at the moment. But
oh no, that's fine.
and I wish I could, but in other words, and I think what they're doing though is I think they're kind of going to release things almost like in a real schedule, like if people are at the event, which will be cool. I mean, it's in Dragon Con, actually, because I've been in touch with them. I do the most for them out of anybody in terms of panels. They're still on at the moment. They're still trying to hold it. I think that's going to have to be a very different kind of event if it goes on. So at the moment, I'm hoping to still attend that. We'll have to see what happens. I mean, in the future, I think 2020 is going to be, almost like the year of no cons, right? Or the year of a very different kind of experience. And hopefully we can kind of start in next year, easing back into a little bit more of what we're used to for going to cons. Because I know for a lot of people, myself included, they're amazing events. They're some of my favorite things to do, and we get to bond with your, fellow fans and people who love the same stuff you do. I mean, I think, they may have to be done very differently and much smaller crowds and smaller panels and the way things are set up in terms of the seating and stuff for a little while. But I'm hoping that, I don't know. And I think we can get probably back to how things have been done in the past in the future.
So has there been a favorite out of all panels you've hosted? Has there been a favorite one or one that kind of sticks out for you that you got to meet somebody that always wanted to meet, and it's just like it was a geeky moment for you?
Like of the panels that I've been a part of?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So The ones that first come to my mind are all from Dragon Con, and this is nothing. And like all the cons I go to, I have a great time, and they're awesome. But Dragon Con is a very special place, and you'll hear that from a lot of people. And everybody told me that before I went, and I've gone the last 3 years. And when I went, I totally understood what everybody said, like why Dragon Con is so awesome. My Super Geeked Up shows have been the most, like every time our room has been packed and the audience has been the most like crazy and vocal and awesome, crazy in a good way. And it's amazing. Outside of Super Geeked Up though, I'm going to tell you two things that stand out for Dragon Con, and they were both this last year. We did a role-playing panel. There's a game called Action Movie World, which is where you get to create it's like an over-the-top cheesy 80s action movie, and you play actors playing the characters. So like you're playing almost like Jean-Claude Van Damme playing some like over-the-top action star, right? And we got to do that as a panel, like actually play the game with audience telling us the ideas for the story, and basically making a story out of the audience suggestions and having the audience even come up and play with us. And it was like the most fun I think I've ever had probably at a con and doing it. And it was just amazing because how much the audience was into it and like how much they enjoyed it. And it was like I don't get to do that at other cons usually, that kind of like actually perform a game, like a role-playing game at a convention. And the other one I'll mention is because at Dragon Con, I get to moderate a lot of celebrity panels, which is fun. So last year I did, one of the ones I did was the Winona Earp. So Winona Earp is a sci-fi channel or network show, if people aren't aware of it. And I hadn't watched it beforehand, but I watched it for the panel, and all the actors on the show were like the coolest, most down-to-earth people who appreciate their fans more than any like actors I've ever seen. And not that other actors don't do this, right? But like, it wasn't like these weren't people like, it wasn't like Star Trek Next Generation, right? Like these are actors who I like since I was a kid. But they were like so amazing. I had the best time on that panel because these actors were so cool. And they were so appreciative of their fans. And that's what I'm looking for. Like, honestly, when I go to cons, people who really love being there and want to interact with their fans. And one of those 100 people actually was a guest on Super Geeked Up at Dragon Con that year.
Oh, nice.
And again, they didn't really know anything about the show. They were just like, sure, I'll do it. Why not? Sounds fun. So I don't know. So like, whatever panels I have the most fun on are usually the ones obviously that stand out to me the most.
Are there any, specific guests or, guests you would, like actors you would like to have to do a Super Geeked Up at a con with?
At a convention?
What dream panel? What's your dream panel cast?
Like, so what guest at a convention to do Super Geeked Up?
Right.
I think it'd be fun to have some of those guys from Who's Line, to be honest with you. Like Wayne Brady or Colin Mockery or Ryan Stiles. I've been watching those guys forever. And they're like, I think they're the masters of the craft, right? Like I can't do anything compared to them. Outside of that, I'm trying to think of like who, because it's interesting, right? Because some actors are very comfortable doing improv, and some would kind of shy away from it, which is totally understandable. I've kind of had to learn. I've learned a lot about it just by doing the show and getting much more comfortable with it myself. I didn't think anything I would ever be able to do back in the day. I think it'd be fun to have maybe Brent Spiner from Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah.
I've seen him on panels before, and he's always super fun. And he does great impersonations. And I don't know. I have a feeling like he might be willing to do that. He seems like he's he's always been very amiable at panels when I've watched him on panels. I think that'd be fun. I think it'd be cool to have some of the Arrowverse people.
Yeah.
Like actually Echo Kellum, who plays Mr. Terrific or did on Arrow. He actually is an improviser. He's actually trained in that. Somebody like that. Or like Grant Gustin. I don't know. I think just he's awesome. So I don't know. Honestly, anyone from the Arrowverse, because I watch those shows so much, I think would be cool. So
again, using it as a segue, what do you think of the current seasons? I mean, I still have to finish all of them except for Arrow, because once things kind of once life changed and I was at home 24/7, and with a 3.5-year-old, then by the evening you're tired, so it's like even watching a TV show is
Sure.
But what I guess there's some big news with the what's her Ruby
Rose
from Batwoman.
Yeah.
Leaving the show, and then I guess I haven't had a chance to watch any of the Stargirl episodes, but that's my favorite characters. So just thoughts on this year's CW, Christ on Infinite Earths.
Sure, yeah. So I'm probably somewhat in your boat. I made it like through halfway of all the seasons, and I kind of fell off after that. But I watched all of Arrow, and kind of Arrow, I think probably overall, and it was the first one. It's kind of been my the one I've always really looked forward to watching. And I think the last season of Arrow, so the final season, I honestly loved, and I actually don't know if they could have really ended it any much better than they did. I'm really happy with what they did. They brought in all that last season. They were able to almost give an episode to all the old characters, right? We saw in past seasons just about, and that we loved. And it was a really nice send off. So I'm really happy with how they ended that. I thought Crisis on Infinite Earths was really well done. So I've had an issue, and I still do, with these big crossovers that the CW has done. And it's always been their big ratings thing, right? Every year it's the highest ratings they get, and I get why they do it. And I think Crisis was the best one they've done. But I don't know. My issue has always been when you do these big crossovers, I feel it's not helpful to the shows individually, because they have to try to make their individual storylines somehow fit in this big crossover, right? And one reason I've been a little hesitant to watch the rest of the shows after Crisis, because I watched one or two, I'm like, oh, great. Now everything is different than all the stuff I just invested in all these years, because Crisis changed everything. And I'm like, Crisis was great, but I don't know if it was worth, now that I have to. It's almost like DC and all these comics do every few years, right? They reboot the whole universe, and that drives me nuts. So I don't know. I'm a little Crisis was great, but I don't know if I'm going to love all the effects it has going forward now on these universes. And I have to watch more really to see that, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I think what kind of hurt, along with just not having the time to watch them, is they would go they get those long breaks, and then it's like, okay, I gotta remember that they come back on. But I think my favorite has always been Legends of Tomorrow, because they don't take themselves seriously, and even after Crisis, they were, oh, Oliver died. Well, I shouldn't have participated in the crossover.
Oh wait, did they joke about that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
They always make jokes about the crossovers, yeah, and Legends. I mean, in terms of Ruby Rose, so again, I watched about half of Batwoman. I liked Ruby Rose as Batwoman. So it's kind of obviously I certainly to her respect, though, obviously what she has to do what's best for her. That's not doing the show. So I think the show will be fine going forward. They'll obviously find somebody else really awesome for the role. Yeah. So and I've always really liked Batwoman from the comics as a character. So I was very excited that they were doing a Batwoman show. So
I think they handled it very well, and they were definitely building on the comics lore, and kind of making it their own at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally they've done a good job of that in those Arrowverse shows, taking in working in things that people who love the comics are going to really dig, but then also kind of doing their own take on it, right, and making it their own shows, like you said.
So, have you been reading the comics lately that you've been really digging? Have you gone back, and since there's been no new comics, if you're with your comics, was there something that you went back and kind of reread during the whole time in the distribution?
I actually haven't lately. You know what? It's yeah, I'll be honest with you. Like, even the past couple years, it's been very difficult for me to consistently get into any comics. And I was reading a little bit of Amazing Spider-Man last year, which was some cool stuff. Which is funny because that's kind of like the one I probably began reading as a kid. But you know what? Here's the thing, right? I had to stop on my pull list, right? Because I would have these comics and then I would get them and pay for them. I'm like, I don't have any time to read these comics. Why am I paying all this money? Which is kind of a shame, right? But obviously, it's okay though, because I'm trying to create stuff on my own, which for me is more
that's right
for me, right? So I'm trying to do Super Geeked Up, and I'm trying to do a ton of writing now, right? Like creating my own stories. So I'm okay with that because I actually like creating even more. So yeah, so I haven't been able to read too much. Probably I will say, this is obviously several years ago, but Ultimate Spider-Man, I read that. Brian Michael Bendis is probably my favorite comic writer, and he had an amazing run on Ultimate Spider-Man. I don't even, and for him and Mark Bagley, right? Is that the name?
Bagley, yep.
Yeah. They did the first 100 issues together, which is unheard of for a writer and artist to do that many in this day of age together. And it was fantastic. So I remember that's that one, I enjoyed. And again, that's several years ago now, but still I was consistently reading that comic, and I really liked that.
So where can people, find your stuff? I know you have a YouTube channel if you want to, give that out, or where they can find you on social media.
Sure, yeah. So supergeekedup.com, the website you put up, that's where they can find all the stuff. We're youtube.com/supergeekedup. They can check out all the Super Geeked Up shows. They can find my Super Knocked Up series, which I mentioned. There's a couple seasons of that. If you want to watch some comedy superhero series, and any of the gaming or Arrowverse stuff, everything's on our channel there, and the website and the YouTube channel. They can find all that, and I certainly would love it if you guys can take a look at it. And then Super Geeked Up is pretty much where you can find us on all social medias like Twitter and Facebook, and Instagram and all that stuff.
Yeah, and you announce when you do your live shows so people can tune in, right?
Oh, when we do the shows?
Live shows, yeah. Live Super Geeked Up, yep.
Yeah, when Super Geeked Up, when we're in season, it's always Wednesdays, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. And we always announce, when we're going to go to a new season. Like I said, we're about to end our current season. But in a couple months, we'll start a new one, and we'll announce that. And we certainly, I always announce, if we're going to do, a gaming or show or Arrowverse show or any kind of special thing. Yeah. Basically the website is the best place, or social media, any of those places you can find when we're doing stuff.
Well, I want to thank you for, taking the time to chat, and it's nice to catch up with you, and hope you're, doing well out in California, and stay safe, stay healthy.
Oh, no, thank you. Same to you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great to chat. I always love talking anything geeky.
And if you whenever you start, releasing, you said you were working on some of your, some writing stuff, and if you'd like to, come back, talk about that, then, be glad to have.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
So, yeah. And for people, if anybody's watching this, they can also catch my stuff at the YouTube channel, which there should be a little icon here when I get done with it. And then and then we're on Twitter and TU Comics. But yeah, it's great talking to you. Have you talked to Mike lately? Because I know that you guys were working together. When you were in Albany. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Spring. So Mike he does his own cool podcast, like After the Ending, I think, if I'm remembering the title.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So Mike, any of the shows I would do in Albany, or a lot of the shows anyway, a lot of times Mike would come on and co-host with me the Super Geeked Up shows. We would do it like Albany Comic Con or Empire State, which is he was always great to pitch in and like help out with that, and he was always a lot of fun. So obviously it's been a while since I've gotten to do anything with him, since I haven't been in Albany, but it was always a lot of fun doing it with him. And in the first Empire State that you mentioned where we met, like he did the show with me there, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, I think since then we've been getting to know each other pretty well. He came on one of the shows that I did about way back in, I think it was probably March, when we were it was a topic about whether New York Con was going to happen, which was pretty much all was already decided. But it was just nice to have a bunch of different people weighing in on the topic, and
sure,
it's good content.
Yeah.
So, but again, thanks for joining us, and I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll be in touch. So stay in touch.
That'd be great. Thanks again for having me on, man. It was great.
All right, thanks. Later.